Live. Welcome, everyone, to the Melanin Initiative. I'm Dr. Kimberly Madison, a doctorally prepared nurse practitioner and one of your co hosts for the Melanin Initiative. In healthcare, there is often too much information and not enough time. Here at the Melanin Initiative, we avoid TMI by breaking things down into language you can understand. We create a safe space to ask your questions and share our nursing perspective without taking too much of your time. As we've mentioned in previous episodes, June is Pride Month, where nationally we recognize the LGBTQIA community, which stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer or questioning, intersex, and asexual. The plus is used to signify all the gender identities and sexual orientations that are not specifically covered by the other five initials. We are excited to have our second guest join us. He's a big deal and has a very busy schedule. So, unfortunately, my other co-hosts, Alisha and Geraldine, who are also very busy working clinicians, were not able to join us but send their love. As a friendly reminder, this show is for educational purposes only. The opinions expressed are opinions alone. They are not a representation of any of our affiliations. If you're experiencing a medical emergency, you should seek medical attention and medical guidance from your healthcare professional. In this episode, I'm joined by special guest Kenya Hutton, and we're going to recap the weekend events for DC Black Pride that took place in May. We're going to discuss why DC Black Pride was even necessary, share health inequities affecting the Black Pride community, talk about steps we can take to improve health inequities, and provide you with some DMV resources. Welcome, Kenya.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we're so honored to have you here, and we really consider this a very special episode for us. We want to make sure everyone in the community feels represented here at the Melanin Initiative. To start, if you could just tell us what it is you tell people you do for a living.
Sure, I save the world for a living. I no for the full time my full time job. I am the deputy director at the Center for Black Equity, which is the largest Black queer human rights organization in the world. We work with all the Black Prides globally, all over the United States, UK, parts of Africa, the Caribbean, and really work with them to support. They're not only like create their Black Prides, but also make sure that their prides are sustainable, and also, also in the vein of making sure they stay true to the origins of what Black Pride started from, which was quite different from what is now known as the mainstream pride. It's a little different, right? So we try to make sure that we stay true to our core and our origins. And yeah, I can go on and on about the things I do, but I'll keep it around the Black Pride realm for right now.
Okay, so that's interesting. So I'm a big history buff, and you mentioned the original origins. I would love to hear what that was.
Sure. So DC Black Pride was the first Black Pride in the world, right? It started in DC in 1991. Um, what happened was it back in the late 80s. I think it was back in the 70s, but I definitely know for sure in the late 80s, going into the 90s, there was a annual gathering in DC called the Children's Hour at a place called the Clubhouse, which was really a spot that Black queer folks during that time was able to come to DC, celebrate, enjoy each other, and just really be around folks. Especially in the 80s, things were a little tough for people of color, especially queer people of color. And then as HIV started really ravishing the community, it became a space that folks were able to come together to get access to medications, get information, raise funds for organizations and for people, and to really just get together and really just create community around HIV was really damaging the community. In about 1990, the clubhouse closed its doors. There were as a lot of clubs do, they have their run in 1990. It closed, and then a number of folks came together and said, they really want to keep this thing going. They don't want it to stop. So in 1991, they established the very first what was then called Black Gay Lesbian Day. And the three people, I know there were other individuals, but the three individuals that's on the incorporation papers is Theodore Kirkland, Wilmer Cook, and Ernest Hopkins. Theodore Theodore Ernest Hopkins is the only one that is still with us right now, so we celebrate him every time we get, because he's our history, right? He was here in the start of it. So yeah, so it started then, and it was always Memorial Weekend, so we always keep that going. But now Black Pride has grown to a whole week long of activities, which we'll talk about as we go on. But that's what it really started. It really started as a space for us to come together and develop resources. Really, for the community that was being affected and still is being affected by HIV. That's what the origins of DC Black Pride started, which is kind of different from the Stonewall riots. But same vein, but kind of different.
Well, you brought up another vocabulary word for our audience. Do you want to give us a brief explanation of Stonewall?
Sure, sure. The Stonewall riots started back in the 70s, and which was really the catalyst to the gay movement, the gay rights movement that we all know today. It was started by two trans women of color, right? Which is interesting because we talk about pride, and we call that one mainstream pride, right? That's what happens in June. It's you see less and less honoring of the Black trans women that started this movement. Which is another reason why Black Pride is important, because we have our history. But yeah, so really, and one of my members was actually one of my Center for Black Equity members, was actually there at the riot.
Hmm.
And we had, it was last year, we sat and he really just gave me the story. And what it really boiled out to, it was her birthday. It was Marsha P. Johnson's birthday. And at that time in New York City, you could get arrested for being gay, for wearing female clothing, for just being gay, right? On all the things that queer folks do. And they got tired. They were constantly raided this bar called Stonewall, which is downtown New York City. And one day, they just got upset and said, "I'm tired of it," and they threw a brick. And that's what started the Stonewall riots, which led to the Stonewall parade, which led to the Black gay movement. I mean, not just the gay rights movement that we see today.
Thank you. So you kind of segued us into what is DC Black Pride and why it was created. Did you want to add anything to that?
Well, why it was created, I think, but it's also why it's important. One of the things that we experience, like I've been doing DC Black Pride. This is my 15th year doing it.
Oh,
This is the 32nd Black Pride. I've been doing it for, yeah, pretty much half of the time. I've been doing it. And it's important for us to have not only created this space but maintain this space, because representation matters, and you can only actually included to the table, brought to the table, but so much before you say, like, you know what, I'm just going to build my own table, right?
exactly.
And we've done that, and that's where I came into play, because it always is a question, like, why do we have two prides? Why do we have different prides? Like, well, representation matters, and we weren't visible, right? We weren't visible in an intentional way. It was almost more so tokenized
Mhm.
in mainstream pride. So it was important that we have these prides. And then on top of that, um, every community has a right to feel and be celebrated, for who they are. No one questions why they have I'm from New York, right? So I'm gonna do a lot of New York references. Why do
Oh,
they have the Puerto Rican Day Parade? Why we have the St. Patrick's Day Parade? No one questions that. But when it comes to the Black gay or the queer community, they're like, oh, we need to consolidate and all be under one umbrella. No, everybody wants to have their own celebration. So the Black queer community has it, API has it. We have Silver Pride in DC. Everybody deserves to be represented and celebrated for who they are and how they are, and not be just stuck under an umbrella. So yeah, it's very easy for me to get in a soapbox and start going. So you
the
have to,
more you talk, the more I realize what a big deal and honor this is to have you.
oh no,
I
so I'm
have to
happy to be
thank
here.
my friend Deb, who started with me when I was in the ICU, and she's just been such a great friend of mine. She called me up one day and told me about DC Black Pride and your involvement, and that's how this interview even came about. So,
Love
big
that.
shout out to Deb.
Yes, love her, love her, love her. Was actually part of, and I don't know if you want me to segue into that.
Yeah.
For the first year, we always have a health and wellness component, right? We always offer HIV testing. We have a slew of workshops that goes on. But this year, we had what for the first time, a full health and wellness pavilion, and that's how I actually met Deb. Um, We brought in providers from across the district to come and provide services. Everything from HIV testing, STI testing, blood pressure screenings, glucose, what else he offered? Vaccines was offered. Massages, because when you think about health and wellness, right? It's not just the clinical stuff. Sometimes it's like sometimes you might just need a massage. You need a facial. So we did that other part. So we had that. We had a whole floor, all of those things happening, which turned out exceptionally well. It really showed. My whole thing is, I come from direct services, and I know sometimes in our community, these are the only spaces that we actually take advantage of these services, of these health services. So it was important for me to not only maintain it but expand it and look from the the response we got. It was definitely well received. I mean, of course, we had to offer a little something. If you went to the Health and Wellness Pavilion, you got entered into a raffle for 2 floor seat tickets to the Beyonce Renaissance tour. So that may have something to do with it, but also people also, I think, I say that, but also we had a number of people that participated that didn't even enter the raffle. They just wanted to get that service. Some people I know, they got on DoxyPep, didn't even know what it was, and got on that. So it was just really good, and that's shout out to Deb. Deb was great, a great partner in that Health and Wellness Pavilion and bringing something new and fresh to DC Black Pride.
That sounds awesome. I hope I can participate at some point in the future.
Done and done.
Is
Yes.
there
That
is,
is.
is there some place online where we can send our guests to see like a video or a recap of the events?
Yes, we are actually doing that now because there's so much things coming down the pipe as far as like just videos and pictures. And we actually we're about to send out a newsletter soon that's gonna have all the photos. We had photographers, videographers, we had volunteers, a whole bunch of things, and then we're going to also be requesting photos and videos from people that we're going to put in an entire full recap. But if you want to see everything that happened on the website, go to dcblackpride.org. It's all there. Or if you use the hashtag DC Black Pride, DCBP, or DCBP23, you'll see all the photos that's circulating that we're like, it's so overwhelming to me because in a good way. Because everything was going good right up to the pandemic, and then the pandemic happened, and we didn't have Black Pride for 2 years.
Oh,
And then because we were one of the first ones before the mainstream Pride. We said we're going to cancel Black Pride for the first time. We're going to cancel it, not because we wanted to, but just because we understood what was happening, and we knew our community was being affected. At an enormous rate. So we decided it wouldn't be, I come from a public health background. My boss comes from a public health background. We say we wouldn't be good stewards of our community to bring everybody together to celebrate, right, life when there is an airborne virus going around. That doesn't make sense. So we canceled it. And then we brought it back, and then we had a pretty good attendance, but it's always like, oh, what's going to happen? But then this year, pulled out the park. Like the numbers are just ridiculous. Like it's so overwhelming to see all the great things people had. We had women's parties, men parties, we had events for the trans community, gender nonconforming community. We had everything. Majority of it was right in our host hotel where Deb was. So Deb got to see full eyesight of everything. We had a Rainbow Row, which increased. When I got on board at DC Black Pride, Rainbow Row is where we have it's around vendor expo. We just call it Rainbow Row now. We had about maybe like 15 to 20 vendors come. This year we had 74 vendors come that was predominantly queer, Black and queer, or serving the queer, Black and queer community, which is great to see. Dr. Madison, you're gonna have to stop me because I will ramble and I will go on a tangent and I will go on a soapbox real quick.
no, you're doing excellent. You mentioned Silver Pride though. I'm curious, does that have to do with older adults?
Yes, yes,
Oh,
yes. That is a relatively newer pride that is happening right now. It's organized by Whitman Walker. It's actually if not this weekend, it's next weekend. I think it's next weekend. In DC, and yeah, Silver Pride. So space for the older community. Our seniors are here, and we have to celebrate them. They are literally our history in this community, in the queer community. There's so many things that I when I have conversations with some of our elders in our community that I was like, I had never read that in a book. And I've read the book about the story you're telling me about, but I didn't learn the details. Again, like, having one of our members of the Center for Black Equity actually there, right, when it happened, and having to run because he was a teacher at NYU and one of his students was one of the Kennedy kids, and he had to run and leave to be able to tell me that story, right? It's I love my senior community. I love the elders. I just we got to cherish them and uplift them as much as we can.
Yes, that's my favorite age population. I always say the older, the better. And
Yeah.
initially, I was going to go in that setting. Now I practice in dermatology, and I still have a special place for them. Um, and certainly in healthcare, there's still a huge gap in education when it comes to training us to meet the needs of this community. But I will say when I was in nurse practitioner school, we had an excellent presentation that really discussed kind of the inequities and the burdens of having to live in a socialized world where the standard is considered to be cis or straight. Um,
Hmm.
and so it was at that time where I learned that our older adults, after all the work they might do to come out and be proud and live their life freely, might actually end up going back in the closet as they get
Yeah.
older,
Yeah.
particularly if they end up in some sort of institution where it's just a mixed environment. You don't know who you're going to meet, what kind of support, what kind of threats. And so you go back in the closet. And that literally broke my heart to think that after all those years, to have to go back and end your life in that manner.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine what it's like. And I know exactly what you're talking about. And yeah, like when I first heard that, and I was like, people, I just never thought about it that way until some seniors was like, yes. And then I started thinking about some Black queer elders that I know, and it ended up in institutions, right? Nursing homes, when I was like, oh my God, so and so might have had to go back in the closet and in their later years and not like be out proud and in glory. Like, and again, these are the people that fought for the rights that we have today, right? They fought for the rights for me to be able to prance down the street. I can't prance, but walk
We can
swiftly.
picture it.
Right, right. Walk swiftly down the street, and waving a flag. These are the people that, and it's such a disservice to that community to have them go back in the closet. Now, I believe in uplifting them, and yeah, I was raised by my grandparents, so I have a
Mhm.
soft spot in my heart for the senior community. Absolutely.
And what were their names?
Lavina Reed and Norman Reed.
Okay, well, we recognize them today.
Yes, yes.
So actually, that's a great segue to our next question. What are the top health disparities in Black and Brown LGBTQIA plus communities?
Oh gosh. Well, how much time do we have? Because and as you know, and I'm sure some of your listeners know, the Black community is in a whole, bears the burden of a lot of health issues within the community, right? And then when you couple it with being, queer or trans, you're going to see the doctor even less because out of fear, right? So and that of course allows these other health issues to um grow and to fester and become worse, right? So you have, of course, HIV, COVID, cancer. We're seeing a lot of colon cancer and breast cancer in our community. Um, let me see, HIV. Of course, COVID is still around, affecting our community. I'm still finding people that are testing positive and dying. I found someone that died recently, and I was like, oh my gosh, we're still dying from COVID, right? Cancer is definitely another big one. Mental health.
Mm.
Mental health is another one, right? And I'm gonna throw this under the umbrella of health inequity, but it's stigma. Stigma can kill, right? Stigma can kill, it's almost it's always seemed like it's an uphill battle we're fighting. But those are some of them right off the top of my head I could just ramble off that are definitely still affecting high blood pressure.
Mm.
God, heart disease.
Actually, high blood pressure is the motivation for this entire podcast.
Wow. Yeah. As I'm sitting here, I'm like, oh my gosh, right? Because I was diagnosed with a heart condition 3 years ago, like it was at the right beginning of COVID, and I'm 45 now, right? And this is something that was genetic. I grew in it, but no one in my family knew. No one told me. No one knew about it. And now I came out and I'm like, nobody knew. But mind you, both my grandparents died from heart complications with their heart, and no one thought to say, we should look into that, right? So here we are now. So again, that's another issue that we're seeing affecting the Black community, especially the Black queer community. Because like I said, I have friends that are trans that has gone to the doctor, and I'm just thinking about the story she just told me right now, and she went to the doctor, and the triage nurse asked her, this is her regular primary care. There's a new triage nurse, got her file, pulled it up, and asked her when was her last cycle. So then she had to come out to somebody else because someone didn't do their due diligence and read the chart to see, and I'm like, how many other people have to go through that, right? I know people that have gone to the doctor and asked for PrEP, and to be told, why do you want the HIV drug for? Right? Miseducation it's and these are the things, and I'm just giving like some brief examples. But if it's happening for one person, who knows how many other people it's happening to? And this is why we don't like to go to the doctor, right? Always, I find it interesting when conversations around healthcare and the Black and brown community, talking about accessing healthcare, and they make it seem like it's, we don't want to go. It's that they don't want to go. It's what we have to go through when we get there, right? It's like so that's why, in a lot of communities, we end up doing our own home remedies, right? Because it's better to just figure it out at home than go. Yeah, right. Drink my ginger ale, drink my ginger tea, then go to the hospital and have to explain and be judged and looked at. Especially when you live in a world where that's your constant experience, and you're gonna go seek healthcare, and to get that too, I'd rather just sit home and stuff. I know I have friends that got mpox and was embarrassed to go to the doctor, so they suffered through it at home because they was embarrassed of what people were going to say. I have a friend who did not get the vaccine because he has eczema, and he didn't want to be in the room and people see his eczema and judge him, because because that carried stigma, right? They launched it and pushed a whole bunch of stigma, made it seem like people were doing all kinds of I was on a panel one discussion with a health department, mind you. And the person from the health department said, people that are getting mpox is from having, unusual, unnatural sexual activities. And I was just like, what does that mean, first of all? And second of all, you are a whole health department head. You should know the language you're using is stigmatizing people, right? So yeah, see, I just went on a tangent again. I'm sorry. I am sorry.
I'm so sorry that your friends had those experiences in healthcare. What I always tell my patients is, healthcare is it a system, but it's made of individuals, and individuals have their own beliefs, their own values, their own experience, their own level of education, their own motivation to get educated when they recognize there's a gap in knowledge. And so while sometimes we might have a bad experience in one place or with one clinician, I try to encourage people that, it's like dating. You just have to keep going out there. You can find the right person for you. You can find the right practice for you. So you highlighted some really important things in terms of the community not going to seek medical care. And one of the things we know about is that it's the reputation in the community. Before the patient even contacts that office, they already have an idea of whether or not they want to go there. And sometimes it actually starts with the person picking up the phone. The provider might have no clue and never find out. It's all about the secretary. So I have a blog, and I recently uploaded a free downloadable infographic on how to create an inclusive care practice in dermatology. But really, the recommendations can be implemented in any specialty setting. So I'll link to that in the show notes. And that kind of segues into what you would like clinicians to know in terms of how we can better support this community.
Yeah. Something to know, and I'm glad you brought that point up, because when I used to do direct services, and still do talk about it, was that knowledge base, that experience starts from, like you said, picking up the phone, walking the door. The lady at the front desk can turn you away, because I know people that have gone in and because of whatever happened at the front desk, they just walked out the door.
Yeah.
You're right. The clinician doesn't even know what's going on. So it's always important. So that's definitely something I think, be aware of biases. Get whatever training you can get, understand that. And be aware of your biases. And I'm gonna go back to that because, w- people are perceptive, right? And I can sit in the room and I can gauge. It's my own perception, but I'm gonna gauge from your interaction with me what's going on in your head, right? And then if I feel that you are judging me, if I feel that you are doing, I've had experiences with doctors that have done things, and I was just like, oh my god, um, that's a barrier, and that's going to make people not do. So just check your biases at the door. I know we say that all the time, but it's important to do that. Get as much training as you can. I have friends that are doctors that say, "Oh no, I don't need to go to this training." You never I think you should always get training on something. There's always something new coming on the pipeline. You should be aware of, attend all the conferences, and really, on your advisory boards, on your community advisory boards, in your board, try to make it try to make it look like the community that you serve, right? Because they're going to be the ones to pinpoint and let you know what needs to be changed and how things can be better, right? Don't serve a black middle to low class community, and your entire community advisory board is cis white men from 3 towns over. There's going to be a major disconnect, right? As much as you try, there's going to be a major disconnect. Try to make sure, pick people from the community people that utilize your space, utilize your services, and put them in community advisory board. And don't just put them there just to check a box, say I have them. Actually listen to what they're saying, hear them out, because they may not be able to articulate things the way you may want, but if you just take a minute and just listen to what they're trying to say, you'll understand. And give people, get that's one of my biggest things that I'm telling all practitioners to do right now. Make sure your community advisory board is reflective of the community you serve.
Wonderful. So I'm going to just recap our episode for today. So our TMI takeaways were that we talked about DC Black Pride and why it was created, and I've never seen that in a book. So I'm so honored to have someone who's been in this field for at least 15 years, right? Formally.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
you're right? We know the work began way before that. We talked about the events that took place over that weekend, and I'm gonna have a link in the show notes so that you can go to the website and see all the pictures and videos. And we talked about the hashtags, which I'll include also, so that you can find it through social media. We talked about top health disparities, which in some ways are similar to just the Black community in general, right? Cardiovascular disease, diabetes, but also unique things like gender affirming care and how to be sexually protected, even physical protection in the workplace. There's a lot happening in the workplace that there's no protection for employees,
Yeah.
and they're suffering in silence because of that. We'll include some community resources below, and we talk about what clinicians can do to support the community regarding health and providing equitable care. Sometimes that's as simple as announcing your pronouns, making sure everyone does it so it's a standard. No one stands out. No one looks like that they don't belong, right? You can be on your website. You can have certain images and logos that just indicate that you're an inclusive practice. Little things like that. And today, it's very easy to find webinars on your demand on how to provide equitable care and how to recognize your own biases, which
Yep.
we all have. Remember, everyone, we drop a new episode every week on TMI Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern. You can find us on all your favorite podcast apps as well as YouTube. Our email and social media links will be in the show notes, as well as all the resources that we talked about today. I can't thank you enough, and I can't wait to meet you in person. I know we can have a whole day.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. It's gonna be a day where we're just gonna talk. I can't wait. I can't wait. I can't wait to get back so we can do something. Yes, absolutely. Looking forward to meeting you in person. And as you're talking, I have so many ideas off the show that I want to talk to you about.
Oh,
We'll talk
perfect.
later.
Yeah. Because even though it's Pride Month and we're doing this special episode, these topics, this community is going to be a thread throughout this podcast. That's something very close to my heart. And so it doesn't have to be June for us to address the community and what needs to be done. We wish you the best. He's under the weather today. He's going to be drinking his ginger ale and ginger tea. And we wish you safe travels for the rest of the weekend. Thank you, everyone, for watching.
Thanks. Take care.